Gravedigger, a Day Brandstetter mystery, Book 6. Author, Joseph Hansen. Publisher, Open Road Integrated Media, New York. Narrator, Eric Aust. Chapter 8. Perez didn't appear to have any point, unless it was the wildflowers, lupins, poppies, blue and gold, that carpeted the desert for miles around in all directions. These few weeks in February, a road sliced through the town, kept minimally paved, probably for the sake of those same few weeks. Perez had a gas station for wildflower viewers. It had what a faded signboard boasted was a desert museum and gift shop, where a two-headed rattlesnake could be seen, and where maps were sold of abandoned mines and ghost towns. A board structure with a high false front claimed to be an eatery. A tired wildflower viewer could even sleep in Perez at the Roadrunner Motel. 6 scaly stucco units, each with a weedy patch of cactus garden vacancy. Naturally, on the bone-gray wooden side of the grocery store, the paint faded on a sign for Old Gold cigarettes. Wax shone on 10 dented wrecks and the dirt lot of Jay's good used cars. The tavern was called Lucy's Strike. From at least one window of every structure in sight hung a rusty air conditioning unit. Dave had already seen Azrael's ranch, 3 sad shacks, painted blue, doors and windows lately broken out, the wind moving through them, through the littered rooms, stirring cheap Indian cotton hangings in the doorways, shifting pathetic scraps of clothing, tufts of mattress, stuffing feathers from ripped pillows across cracked linoleum, death and desertion. Behind the buildings, in what had been a sometime attempt at a vegetable garden, the wind had begun filling in the holes from which, 2 weeks ago, had been dug up the rotted bodies of Azrael's pitiful young disciples. Serenity among them. Each corpse had a gap in its chest. None had a heart. At Azrael's ranch, there had been nothing to see, nothing to remember. So why did Dave know that he was never going to forget it? A pair of big, dusty motorcycles stood in front of Lucky Strike. The place inside was cavernous and dim. Country western music twanged from a jukebox. At the far end of the room, beyond a sleeping pool table, the riders of the motorcycles, boots, filthy Levi's, scabby insignia on jacket backs, operated electronic games that knocked and beeped and winked. The barkeep, Lucky, appeared to have been beaten about the head a good many times in the remote past. His nose and ears were crumpled, scar tissue jutted above his eyes. He set the beer David asked for in front of him, blinked at Dave's PI license, and looked obediently at the snapshot of Serenity, standing at the ranch with the blonde-bearded, mad-eyed Azrael and the other smiling girls. I seen her with them. They wouldn't come in here. He didn't believe in booze, you know? But I seen them in town when he come in that van of his, to pick up supplies for his place. Yeah, I seen her. The important thing, Dave said, is when. Was she with him any time close to the end when he killed the sheriff's men and cleared out? They was friends of mine, Lucky said. You know why they was there? Sanitation? To serve a paper? Some preacher wanted him and his girls out of there. A sex cult, he says. Lucky laughed grimly. Worse than that, wasn't it? Only nobody knew it then. He was all on their side. Hippies. 40 miles from no place. Nobody to see them but lizards and kangaroo rats. If they wanted to do it on the roof, who cared? But this preacher couldn't rest. He must have watched them through a spyglass. Claimed the place was filthy. A pig pen. Not fit. Raised hell with the Department of Health and Sanitation County. They wrote up the paper just to get the son of a bitch off their back. And Lon and Red drove out there to serve it. Marked car, of course. Uniforms. Revolvers on their hip. Of course. And they parked the car and start for the door. And this Azrael's there with a shotgun. Didn't wait to hear what they were there for. Thought they'd find out he murdered all them girls, didn't he? Blew their heads off just like that. The door opened and let in sunlight for a moment, along with 3 youngsters swinging crash helmets. More motorcyclists? No. 2 of them were girls, in very short shorts, knee pads, high-top shoes, padded vest over t-shirts, stenciled sandhoppers in a circle surrounding a drawing of a dune buggy. Lucky served them and the squat, black-bearded youth with them. Cores and cans, which they carried along to the electronic games. Lucky returned to Dave. I can't say for sure how long before that I seen her. He pushed the snapshot away from him. Why do you want to know? It's an old picture, Dave said. The last her family heard from her out here was 2 years ago. Matter of fact. Lucky drew the picture toward him and squinted at it again. He shook his head. No, that's her. She was usually the one who would come into Perez with him. Always wore one of them, what do you call it? Dashikis. Nothing under it. Sun in the street. You could see her naked right through it. He handed the picture to Dave. No, I'd say no more than a month, 6 weeks ago. He watched Dave slide the picture into his jacket pocket. His mouth was grim. Guess that means she was the last one he killed, don't it? Who the hell do you suppose he fed the heart to? Dave stared. What did you say? After he killed one, he made the other ones eat their heart. Didn't know that? Did you? He looked smug. Am I supposed to believe it? Dave said. Lon and Red wasn't my only friends in the sheriff's office. There's this diary this Azrael left behind. They ain't saying nothing to the TV people and the newspaper writers about it. District attorney's got it under lock and key for the trial. Names? Dave said. The names of the girls. If they was in there, you wouldn't be here, would you? The DA wouldn't have kept the names back. Parents all over the country wondering if that's their little girl that ran off. No, come to writing about them girls, he'd draw a little flower or moon or star or cloud. I don't remember what all. No names. Oh, yeah. One was a bird, too. That's it. A little drawing of a bird. Dear God, Dave said. But let one of them do anything he didn't like. Talk back. Disobey. Some crazy rule he made. He killed her. Cut her heart out. Roasted it. Made the other ones eat it so they'd remember to be like he told them. A lot of other stuff in there, too. Stuff you wouldn't believe. He was a mad dog. You know what Azrael means? Angel of death. Another beer. That's enough, Dave said. Then it's over? Cecil asked. Tomorrow you write up your report and Banner sends him his $25,000? It was 1 a.m, rain on the roof. And they sat watching the fire, sat on the couch under the looming rafter shadows of the big rear building and ate wedges of warm quiche and drank cold white wine. Only, where do they address the envelope? That's not your problem, right? Tomorrow, I do not write my report, Dave said. But now you know she was there to the end. Alive, Dave said. Lucky saw her alive. Banner wants proof she's dead. They want to know that unclaimed corpse in the San Diego County Coroner's refrigerator is Serenity Westover's. I can't prove that. Perfect teeth, perfect bones, dark hair. Cecil stood up, holding his own empty plate, and reached for Dave's. Same size, same age. Don't you think it's her? Just leave those till morning, Dave said. Cecil looked doubtful. Draw ants, he said. Too cold and wet for the ants, Dave said. Sit down. Cecil set the plates on the hearth, picked up his glass from the pine couch arm, grinned, and sat down. And Dave put an arm around his bony shoulders. I'm nearer to thinking it's her now. I was sure it wasn't when I was down there to talk to the medical examiner the other day. That's why I didn't go to Perez then. Didn't even think of it. The postmark was old. These kids go to a place like that, get restless, wander off to some other place. They're not going to like it any better. Unless it's Guyana, Cecil said. They didn't wander off from there, did they? And they didn't wander off from Azrael's ranch either. Looked like blue paint. Sky blue, Cecil said. If you couldn't get proof for them, how do they think they are ever going to get it? When someone catches them, Dave said. Cecil shivered. Would you want to catch him? Touch him? Even look at him? Would you want to hear what comes out of his mouth? I don't want to think about it anymore today, all right? Dave turned Cecil's face from the firelight and kissed his mouth. What are we sitting here for? It's late. Why aren't we in bed? I've been wondering that myself. Cecil tossed off the last of his wine, but halfway up the steps to the loft, Dave following him, hands on his narrow hips. Cecil stopped. I forgot. There's a message on your answer machine. I was here. I answered the phone, but I couldn't understand him. Lyle Westover, Dave said. Finally, I apologized all over the place and said, why didn't he call back and I wouldn't answer and he could put the message on the tape. And maybe you'd understand it. Dave sighed, let go of Cecil's hips and went back down the stairs. It could be important, he grumbled and punched keys on the machine. He had to listen 3 times, but at last he puzzled out the message. Lyle was back in the house on Sandpiper Lane. Checks should have been waiting for him from the Musicians Union. They weren't. The mailbox was empty except for a gas bill. No. Did Dave think Lyle's father was picking up the mail? Dave hoped so. He lifted down the sheepskin jacket from a big brass hook beside the door. He called. I have to go out. See you for breakfast. What? The bed frame jounced. Heels thumped the loft planks. Cecil scowled down at him over the railing. He was naked, the firelight glancing off his blackness. You're going out? You leaving this? He showed Dave what he meant. What am I supposed to do with it here all by myself all night long? You could bring it with you, Dave shrugged into the coat. If you don't mind missing your sleep. The sleep would not be what I missed. Cecil vanished from view. Wait for me. I'll be right there. Cecil's head lay on Dave's shoulder. The boy was asleep, his breathing soft, slow, regular. They sat in the Triumph on Sandpaper Lane in the dark and the cold rain that the sea wind kept catching and rattling like grains of sand against the window glass. The wind, the rain, smelled of the sea. Dave stared at the heavy-headed silhouette of the iron mailbox down the street at 171. He checked his watch. Not that there was any point to that. Westover might come from his mail at any hour. So long as darkness held, it was 20 minutes past 3. Moving carefully so as not to disturb Cecil, Dave shifted his position an inch or two on the grudging bucket seat. Painfully, he drew up one cold, stiffened leg until the knee touched the little leather-wrapped steering wheel. He straightened the other leg, the knee joint snapping. He tugged up the woolly collar of his coat and huddled down into the coat a little further, seeking warmth. Cecil murmured, but did not waken. Dave fell asleep. What woke him, he did not know, but he sat up fast and straight. Cecil mumbled, "What?" and rubbed a hand down over his face. It's him, Dave said, and with a sleep-numb hand fumbled for the key in the dash. Through the drizzled windshield, he watched a figure yank open the mailbox at 171, grope inside it, shut it again, and hunched up against the rain, scurry across the black, glossy pavement to a big, dark car that waited with glowing taillights. And Dave's fingers found the cold little key and twisted it. The motor stuttered, coughed, quit, cold. Dave twisted the key again. The starter mechanism gave its sing-song whine. The big car moved away up the street. The Triumph's motor caught. Dave pedaled the accelerator. The motor choked and quit again. Shit! Cecil's hands gripped the dash. He bounced in his seat. Come on, baby, come on! We gonna lose them for sure. The red lights of the big car disappeared around the bend. where the lonely street lamp glowed sallow in the rain. The Triumph's motor caught, sputtered, smoothed out. Dave paused for the leather-covered knob of the gear shift, moved it, remembered just in time to release the handbrake, eased down on the gas pedal, and they were moving. Dave didn't waste time with the tangle of curved streets. He headed for the beach, the coast road. At the top of a hill, they saw the big, lonely car below, just as it swung onto the coast road, heading north, skidding on the curves. They followed. Dave kept distance between them. There was no traffic, nothing but occasional massive 18-wheelers hulking along at 70 and 80 miles an hour, their turbulence knocking the Triumph almost out of control. As they roared past, not the big dark car, it held a steady pace on a steady course. "He doesn't know we're tailing him," Cecil said. The harsh lights of another semi glared in Dave's eyes. From the rearview mirror, he edged the Triumph to the road shoulder. The truck hurtled past, huge wheels churning, loops of water over the Triumph. Muddy water. It took the wipers a moment to clear the windshield. The high, square-cornered shape of the truck with its points of warning light diminished ahead of them. Under a high black bluff, it turned from sight. But down the clear highway, the dark car was nowhere to be seen. "We lost him," Cecil said. "He turned up a canyon," Dave said. Yucca Canyon, it was called. The road was narrow and crooked and steep. The little wheels of the Triumph hammered in potholes. Water dashed against the underside of the car. Big rock outcrops loomed in the headlights. Old oaks bent crooked limbs over the road. They didn't sight the dark car again. Maybe this hadn't been Westover's turnoff, after all. Maybe David guessed wrong. If Westover had realized he was being followed, all he'd have had to do was switch off his lights for a minute and crawl, say, into the shadow of that bluff to be out of sight. Visibility was that bad. Dave was ready to turn back. But then there the big car was again, 100 yards on up the winding road, rounding a bend, yellow headlights raking brush and rock, sparkling with rain. Dave pressed the gas pedal hard, and the Triumph began skidding on turns. The canyon yawned deep and dark below them, and Cecil's eyes grew big, and he sat very still. The pitch of the road turned downward, and soon they sped past a crossroads, where a filling station slept. A building supply yard behind hurricane fencing, a frame building that was a grocery store. Weak, watery night lights lit them dimly. The big car was out of sight again, but in a moment it would reappear up ahead. It had done that 20 times in 10 miles. But now they drove fast and for a long time and didn't see it again. Dave pulled the Triumph up under a clump of dripping manzanita. He backed it, swung it around, and headed it down the way they'd come. At the crossroads, he took the turnoff he should have taken first. They crawled along twisting, climbing roads, quick with flowing water, for half an hour. Peering through the blackness, Dave braked the car again and looked at Cecil. "Are you cold and miserable?" Cecil nodded, cold and miserable. "Let's go home and get warm," Dave said. Yucca Canyon was even wilder and more empty than he had thought last night at first. The road wound up from the coast among broad, low foothills, then entered a narrow pass where it edged an arroyo overhung with the leafless, white and twisting arms of big sycamores. Rain runoff plunged down the arroyo, foaming muddily, tumbling boulders with its force. As the bent road climbed, the arroyo widened, dropped below road level, deeper, full of oaks, and the mountains reared higher, rockier. Sometimes the road was a narrow shelf, cut into cliff faces, almost straight up, down. The drop from the road edge was steep and far to the bottom, and that was what Cecil had been able to see or sense last night from the passenger seat while Dave had skidded the car around these crimps of ragged blacktop. What had made him silent? He slept now, lean, long, naked, sprawled face down in the broad bed on the loft, warm under blankets, unaware Dave hoped that he was alone. David kept waking up, wondering if it was time yet to come back here. At dawn, he had crept quietly into clothes, shaved, fixed coffee in the cook shack, and heated a Danish and eaten it. He'd put on the sheepskin coat and started the Triumph, worrying at the protest of the noisy little valves, afraid they would waken the boy. They hadn't. Now he checked the time on his wrist. 8:30. He wasn't going to be too early. In fact, was he ever going to encounter human life? It was miles before he saw the first sign off it. A shaky ranch board building under massive eucalyptus trees. Bark hanging in brown rags, leafage, shaggy, dark reds. 3 rough-coated horses nodding in the morning sun in a muddy paddock fenced with splintery rails. And then no more signs of life for miles. Then leaf-strewn, night-damp rooftops below road level, sets of wooden stairs leading downward from clumps of tin mailboxes. Then nothing again for miles. He wanted that crossroads. Did it really exist? Now trails began breaking off the main road. Through the trees he glimpsed here a flash of window glass and sunlight, and there a chimney with a wisp of smoke rising from it. A car passed him, heading down the canyon. A rooster crowed. And then the road dropped sharply, and he remembered that. And at the bottom of the long drop he found the fenced building supply yard, the framed grocery store, the filling station. A wash of mud filmed the blacktop around the gas pumps, and a boy in a blue coverall was washing the mud into the road with a garden hose. He had long, straw-colored hair and a big frontier mustache. Dave hated to sully the asphalt he'd only just purified. He ran the Triumph up beside the pumps anyway. The boy turned off the hose around a corner of the station office, and then came at a bow-legged jog to see what Dave wanted. From under the long, mud-stained legs of the coverall, the scuffed points of cowboy boots showed. They were worn down at the heel. "Fill her up, please," Dave told him, and got out of the little car and stretched. The boy reached for the gas hose, said, "Shit," and jogged into the office for keys. He unlocked the pump and took down the hose and stuck the nozzle into the Triumph. The pump began to whir and ping. Dave said, "You worked here long?" "All my life," the boy said without joy. "My old man owns it." "Why?" "Then you must know most of your customers," Dave said. "The people that live in the canyon?" "Yeah, I guess so," the boy said. And again, "Why?" "I'm a private investigator." Dave showed the boy the license in his wallet. "I'm looking for a man named Charles Westover." "I don't know him." The boy pulled the nozzle out of the tank. "You didn't need much gas." "Maybe I need some oil," Dave said. "Would you like to check it and the water?" "It's my job." The boy hung the gas hose back on the pump and worked the hood of the Triumph. "No, Westover. Not unless he pays cash. Nobody pays cash for gas." He bent in under the hood, pulled out the oil stick, and wiped it with a blue rag from a hip pocket. He stuck it back in place and pulled it out again. "You don't need any oil." He replaced the stick, turned, stooped for the water hose. "You get to know their names from their credit cards? Everybody uses stinking credit cards. Country's going to hell." "He drives a Rolls Royce, two-tone, brown and gold," Dave said. About 15 years old. "It's not the kind of car you'd forget." The boy twisted off the radiator cap and fed a few jets of water in. The water overflowed. He dropped the hose, which snaked itself back across the wet tarmac and into its hole. The boy screwed the cap back on and slammed down the hood. "I remember it. Only been in one time, but I remember it, sure." Westover is about 45, slight build. The tip of one ear is missing. "It wasn't him." The boy wiped his hands on the rag and stuffed the rag back into its pocket. "It was a girl. Maybe a teenager. Maybe older. 20 or so. Brown eyes." Dave's heart thumped. "Dark hair?" "Blonde," the boy said. "I couldn't see her eyes. She wore dark glasses. Dave took the snapshot from inside the sheepskin jacket and handed it to the boy. The girl in front? The boy shook his head. Too fat, he said. This one was skinny, sick looking, kind of pale. He handed back the snapshot. Tacky, too. Ragged old sweater, dirty jeans, barefoot. I wouldn't have remembered, except what was somebody like that doing driving a Rolls. He watched Dave put the snapshot away. Is that Azrael? That's who it is. Dave read the meter on the gas pump, dug out his wallet, handed the boy a $20 bill. Keep the change and tack this up somewhere so it doesn't get lost. It was his card. And call me if that Rolls comes in again, will you? Please? You think the girl in that picture is still alive? It's not getting any easier. Dave got into the Triumph and rolled down the window. You only saw it that one time? Yeah. The boy read the card. I'll call you. Thanks, Dave said until 2 in the afternoon. Doggedly not missing a turnoff, he prowled the mud-slick black trails of the canyon, going slowly, searching with his eyes every foot of every crooked mile for the Rolls in a yard, a carport hidden in brush. He didn't find it. He drove back down to the coast road, and with the sea glittering cold and blue in the sunlight to his right, headed home to Cecil. Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold: to offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides, and in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.